There is a quiet war happening inside you, and most people will never see it. It does not leave bruises on your skin, but it can leave scars on your spirit. It is fought in the stillness of early mornings and in the silence before sleep, in the spaces between I can and I can't. And whether you rise in triumph or retreat in defeat is not decided by the noise of the world, but by the whisper of your own mind. For the mind, my friends, is not a fragile thing meant to be carried by circumstance. It is a mighty force, a sharpened blade, a sacred fire. It can build empires from ashes and carve courage out of fear. When you learn to wield it with intention, with discipline, with faith in your own becoming, you will discover that your greatest weapon has never been your strength, your status, or your surroundings. It has always been the power of your own thoughts. The battlefield is within. It is not found in crowded rooms or public arenas, but in the quiet chambers of your own mind. Every victory you will ever celebrate and every defeat you will ever endure first takes shape in the unseen dialogue you hold with yourself. Long before the world responds to you, you have already spoken a verdict in your heart. You have already decided whether you are capable or unworthy, strong or fragile, destined or defeated. And those silent decisions carry more weight than the loudest applause or the harshest criticism. There are moments when life presses against you with the weight of disappointment. Doors close, plans unravel, people doubt you. In those moments, the world may seem like your opponent, but it is not. The real contest begins when your mind whispers, "This is too hard," or "You are not enough." That whisper can either become a chain that binds you or a spark that awakens you. Because the truth is, what you repeatedly tell yourself becomes the foundation upon which you stand. If you declare yourself powerless, your feet will hesitate. If you declare yourself resilient, your spine will straighten. The mind is a powerful storyteller. It can replay your failures until they feel permanent, or it can reinterpret them as lessons carved in wisdom. It can magnify your fears until they appear insurmountable, or it can shrink them down to stepping stones. The choice of narrative belongs to you. And though it may not always feel easy, it is always possible. You may not control every circumstance that enters your life, but you have authority over the meaning you assign to it. That authority is your strength. When you learn to monitor the conversations within, you begin to shift the outcome of your days. Instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" you begin to ask, "What can this teach me?" Instead of concluding, "I will never succeed," you dare to say, "I am still growing." These subtle shifts are not small, they are revolutionary. They turn obstacles into opportunities and setbacks into preparation. They transform fear into focus. Understand this clearly. Confidence is not born from constant success. It is born from the repeated decision to speak life into yourself, even when evidence seems scarce. It grows each time you challenge a limiting thought and replace it with a braver one. The more you practice this discipline, the more powerful your inner voice becomes. And when that voice is trained to encourage rather than condemn, you carry within you a force that cannot easily be shaken. So when the world feels uncertain and the road ahead appears steep, return to the battlefield within. Listen closely to what you are saying to yourself. If your words are tearing you down, rewrite them. If your thoughts are clouded with doubt, clear them with intention. Because every triumph begins long before the celebration. It begins in the quiet, sacred space of your own mind, where you choose, again and again, to believe that you are capable of rising. What you allow to live in your mind will one day live in your reality. A single thought may seem small, almost weightless, but a repeated thought becomes a belief, and a belief becomes a direction. Day after day, in ways so subtle you hardly notice, your mind is drafting the blueprint of your life. It is sketching the outlines of your courage or your fear, your abundance or your lack, your growth or your surrender. The future does not simply arrive. It is shaped quietly by the patterns of thinking you rehearse each morning and each night. If you constantly dwell on limitation, you begin to move as though walls surround you. Opportunities may stand before you, but your vision, trained on impossibility, will fail to recognize them. When your inner dialogue repeats, I am not talented enough, or success is for other people, you begin to act in alignment with those sentences. You hesitate, you shrink, you settle, and over time, what began as a fleeting doubt hardens into a lived experience. Not because you were destined to fail, but because your thoughts prepared you to. Yet the opposite is equally true. When you nurture thoughts of possibility, something remarkable begins to unfold. You start to carry yourself differently. Your posture lifts, your voice steadies, your decisions grow bolder. When you tell yourself, I am learning, instead of I am lacking, you open doors that once seemed locked. When you believe, even quietly, that you are capable of more, you begin to reach for more. And that reaching changes everything. This is not about ignoring hardship or pretending that life is always gentle. It is about choosing the lens through which you interpret your experiences. Two people can walk through the same storm. One sees only destruction, the other sees the clearing that will follow. The storm is real for both, but the meaning they assign to it shapes their response. And response is where destiny turns. Your mind is not a passive observer, it is an active author. Each repeated thought is a sentence written into the story of who you are becoming. If you fill your pages with doubt, the chapters will reflect hesitation. If you fill them with resilience, the chapters will echo perseverance. Over months and years, those sentences gather into a narrative, and that narrative becomes your life. So guard your thoughts with intention. Examine what you rehearse in the privacy of your heart. Ask yourself whether the script you are writing leads you toward the person you long to be. If it does not, you have the power to revise it. You can choose thoughts that stretch you instead of shrink you, that empower instead of imprison you. And as you practice this discipline, you will come to understand a profound truth. Your destiny is not merely something that happens to you. It is something you shape, word by word, thought by thought, until your inner belief and your outer reality begin to mirror one another. There is a voice that speaks to you in moments when no one else is around. It does not shout in public squares or announce itself with thunder. It whispers, it questions, it hesitates, and too often it says, "You cannot." That voice does not arrive as an enemy dressed in armor. It comes disguised as caution, as realism, as protection. But if left unchallenged, it becomes the architect of limitation. Inner doubt has a way of sounding reasonable. It reminds you of past mistakes. It replays old embarrassments. It points to the distance between where you are and where you hope to be, and suggests that the gap is too wide to cross. It tells you that others are more gifted, more prepared, more deserving. And when you listen long enough, you begin to shrink to fit the boundaries it draws. But understand this, the loudest enemy is not the critic outside your door. It is the critic you have allowed to take residence within. External voices may question you, but they do not control you unless your inner voice agrees. The moment you echo their doubt, it gains power. The moment you accept "I cannot" as truth, you hand over the pen that writes your future. Silencing inner doubt does not mean you will never feel fear. It does not mean uncertainty will vanish. It means you refuse to let those feelings make your decisions. It means when the voice says, "You are not ready," you respond, "I am willing." When it insists, "You will fail," you answer, "I will learn." This is not arrogance, it is courage in conversation with fear. Every great step forward in your life will require you to override that whisper, to apply when you feel unqualified, to speak when your voice trembles, to begin before you feel fully prepared. The difference between those who remain stuck and those who rise is not the absence of doubt, but the refusal to bow to it. They hear the same whisper, but they choose not to obey. Your mind was never meant to be a prison of hesitation. It was designed to be a place of vision and strength. When doubt appears, acknowledge it, but do not build it a throne. Let it be a passing cloud, not a permanent sky. Challenge it with evidence of your resilience. Remind yourself of the battles you have already survived, the obstacles you have already overcome. Those memories are proof that I cannot has been wrong before. And each time you silence that inner enemy, you grow stronger. Each time you replace I cannot with I will try, you loosen the chains that once held you back. Over time, the whisper loses its authority. It becomes smaller, softer, less convincing, and in its place rises a steadier voice, one that says, "You are capable, you are growing, you are not finished yet." When that voice becomes the loudest in your mind, you step into a different future. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. Your mind is a garden, whether you choose to tend it or not. Every thought is a seed. Some arrive gently, carried by hope and possibility. Others blow in like weeds, uninvited and persistent. But here is the truth that cannot be ignored. Whatever you allow to take root will eventually grow, and whatever grows will one day bear fruit in your life. If you plant seeds of doubt, do not be surprised when hesitation blossoms. If you water resentment, do not be shocked when bitterness spreads its tangled vines through your days. The mind does not discriminate between what you meant to plant and what you allowed to remain. It simply nurtures what it is fed. Repeated thoughts sink deep into the soil of your spirit, and over time they shape your reactions, your habits, and ultimately your destiny. Guarding your mental garden requires awareness. You must notice which thoughts you entertain and which ones you challenge. When a destructive idea appears, I am not capable, I will never succeed, this is all too much. You cannot simply let it settle comfortably into the soil. You must examine it, question it, uproot it if necessary. Because unattended weeds do not remain small, they multiply. They choke the life out of confidence and crowd out the space where courage might have grown. Yet the beauty of a garden is not in what is removed, but in what is intentionally planted. When you sow thoughts of resilience, you begin to act with perseverance. When you nurture gratitude, joy finds room to bloom even in difficult seasons. When you plant belief in your own growth, you create an environment where progress feels natural, not forced. These are not empty affirmations whispered without meaning. They are deliberate choices repeated until they form strong, steady roots. There will be seasons when storms pass through your life. Winds of disappointment may shake your branches. Rain may fall heavier than you expected, but a well-tended garden endures. Strong roots hold firm beneath the surface. In the same way, a disciplined mind can withstand hardship without losing its foundation. It bends, but it does not break. It feels pain, but it does not surrender to it. Remember that no one else can fully tend this garden for you. Others may offer encouragement, guidance, even wisdom, but the daily work of monitoring what grows inside your mind belongs to you. It is a sacred responsibility, and when you accept it with intention, you begin to see change, not just in your thoughts, but in your life. For in time, the harvest will come. The patience you planted will show up as calm in chaos. The belief you nurtured will appear as bold action. The discipline you practiced will reveal itself as success. And you will realize that your destiny was not a matter of chance, it was cultivated thought by thought in the quiet soil of your own mind. There is a conversation happening within you every single day. It does not pause when you step into a room, and it does not fall silent when you lie down at night. It follows you through triumph and through trial, and the words spoken in that private conversation carry more power than you may realize. They can lift you toward your highest potential, or they can quietly chain you to your lowest doubts. The language you use with yourself becomes the atmosphere in which you live. If your inner voice is harsh, impatient, and unforgiving, you begin to move through life as though you are always on trial. Every mistake feels like proof of inadequacy. Every delay feels like failure. You may smile on the outside, but inside you are bound by sentences that say, I am not good enough, I always mess things up, or I will never get it right. Those words may seem fleeting, but repeated often enough, they harden into beliefs, and beliefs shape behavior. Yet words can also be keys. When you choose to speak to yourself with honesty wrapped in compassion, something shifts. Instead of saying, I failed, you begin to say, I am learning. Instead of declaring, I am weak, you affirm, I am growing stronger. The circumstance may not immediately change, but your posture does, your energy does, your willingness to keep going does. The chains begin to loosen. Understand that freedom does not always come from external validation. It comes from internal affirmation. When you speak life into yourself, you build resilience that cannot easily be shaken by criticism or comparison. You stop measuring your worth by temporary setbacks. You begin to see yourself as a work in progress rather than a finished verdict. And that shift in language transforms the way you approach your future. Words have weight because they shape identity. If you constantly describe yourself as incapable, you will hesitate before opportunities. If you consistently remind yourself of your strength, you will step forward with courage. Over time, the labels you give yourself become the limits or the launch pads of your life. That is why you must choose them carefully. This does not mean ignoring accountability or pretending perfection. It means refusing to weaponize your own tongue against your spirit. It means correcting yourself without condemning yourself, encouraging yourself without deceiving yourself. It means becoming your own ally instead of your harshest enemy. When you master the language within, you begin to master your direction. The chains of doubt weaken, the doors of possibility open wider, and you come to understand that the freedom you have been seeking has been resting in your words all along. Pain arrives uninvited. It does not knock gently or ask whether you are prepared. It steps into your life through loss, through rejection, through disappointment, and it settles heavy on your chest. In those moments, it is easy to believe that pain has come to break you. It whispers that you are weaker now, damaged now, less than you were before. But pain by itself has no final meaning. It is your mind that decides what it will become. A disciplined mind does not deny suffering. It does not pretend the wound does not ache. Instead, it looks directly at the hurt and asks a powerful question. What can this teach me? That single question shifts everything, because when you begin to search for wisdom within your wounds, you refuse to let pain have the last word. You take back your power. There are people who carry their pain like a permanent weight, allowing it to define every step forward, and there are others who carry it like a lesson, allowing it to refine their strength. The difference is not in the depth of their suffering, but in the direction of their thoughts. One mind says, this ruined me. The other declares, this reshaped me. One surrenders to bitterness. The other chooses growth. Suffering has a way of exposing what is fragile within us. It reveals insecurities we did not know we carried. It tests beliefs we once held confidently, but it also reveals resilience we did not know we possessed. When you endure hardship and decide to rise anyway, you discover a strength that comfort could never have taught you. You realize that you are more than the moment that tried to defeat you. A disciplined mind takes the sharp edges of pain and smooths them into wisdom. It reflects instead of reacts. It learns instead of lashes out. It understands that wounds, when tended with patience and courage, can become reminders of survival rather than symbols of defeat. Scars do not mean you were destroyed, they mean you healed. And healing is an act of power. It is the quiet decision to grow beyond what hurt you. It is the refusal to let betrayal make you cruel, or failure make you fearful, or loss make you hopeless. It is choosing to extract strength from sorrow and clarity from confusion. That choice does not erase the past, but it transforms its influence. When you train your mind to see pain as a teacher instead of an enemy, you begin to move differently. You become less afraid of challenges because you trust your ability to learn from them. You become less shaken by setbacks because you know they carry seeds of growth. And slowly, what once threatened to weaken you becomes the very thing that deepens your character. Pain is inevitable, but suffering without growth is optional. With a disciplined mind, you can turn your wounds into wisdom and your trials into testimony. And in doing so, you reclaim your story, not as someone who was broken, but as someone who was strengthened. There is a powerful shift that happens the moment you become clear about where you are going. Not just wishing, not just hoping, but seeing it clearly, boldly, unapologetically in the theater of your mind. Vision is not a fantasy reserved for dreamers. It is direction for the determined. When your mind holds a clear picture of your destination, your steps begin to align with purpose. Without vision, every obstacle feels enormous. Every delay feels like defeat. Every opinion from others feels like a verdict. But when your mind is fixed on a meaningful destination, obstacles lose their authority. They may still appear, but they no longer intimidate you in the same way. They become part of the journey instead of the end of it. A closed door becomes redirection. A setback becomes preparation. A struggle becomes strengthening. Clarity changes posture. When you know where you are headed, you walk differently. You speak differently. You decide differently. You stop chasing every distraction because you recognize what does not align with your purpose. The noise of comparison grows quieter. The fear of failure becomes less paralyzing. Why? Because your mind is anchored in something greater than the present discomfort. Vision also fuels endurance. When the road stretches longer than expected and progress feels slow, it is the image in your mind that keeps you moving. You remember why you began. You remember the future you are building, and that remembrance becomes strength. It reminds you that temporary pain cannot outweigh permanent purpose. There will always be voices that question your direction. Some will doubt your dream because they cannot see what you see. But vision is personal before it is public. It is born in quiet conviction long before it is celebrated in visible success. If you wait for everyone else to understand, you may never begin. Instead, trust the clarity that lives within you, protect it, nurture it, return to it when doubt tries to cloud it. When your mind is clear, your energy is focused, and focused energy is powerful. It turns scattered effort into strategic action. It transforms hesitation into commitment. It strengthens your resilience because you are not merely reacting to circumstances, you are responding with intention. Victory is rarely accidental. It is often the result of someone who refused to let obstacles redefine their direction, someone who chose to keep their vision steady even when the path was uncertain, someone who understood that while they could not control every twist in the road, they could control the destination imprinted on their mind. So see it. See the person you are becoming. See the life you are building. See the impact you are meant to make. Hold that vision firmly, especially when challenges arise. Because when your mind is clear about where you are going, no obstacle has the final say. True power is not loud. It does not always announce itself with titles, applause, or recognition. It lives quietly in the one place most people neglect, the discipline of their own mind. Mastery of self is not about controlling others, nor is it about forcing the world to bend to your will. It is about commanding the one territory that has always been yours, your thoughts. When you do not govern your mind, it governs you. It reacts impulsively. It clings to fear. It replays old failures and predicts new ones. It pulls you toward distraction when you need focus and toward anger when you need patience. An undisciplined mind is easily swayed by circumstance. It rises and falls with every opinion, every setback, every moment of uncertainty. But when you begin to command your thoughts, something extraordinary happens. You create space between stimulus and response. You pause before reacting. You choose clarity over chaos. Instead of allowing frustration to dictate your words, you select wisdom. Instead of surrendering to anxiety, you steady yourself with intention. That pause, that choice, is power. Self-mastery requires awareness. You must notice what occupies your mind throughout the day. Are your thoughts rooted in comparison? Are they shaped by insecurity? Do they drift toward negativity without invitation? Awareness is the first act of leadership over your own life. You cannot direct what you refuse to examine. Then comes discipline. Discipline is not harshness, it is consistency. It is gently but firmly redirecting your mind when it wanders toward limitation. It is replacing "I cannot handle this" with "I will handle this step by step." It is choosing focus when distraction calls your name. It is choosing patience when anger demands expression. Each small decision strengthens your authority over yourself. And with that authority comes freedom. When you command your thoughts, you are no longer a prisoner of mood or moment. You are not defined by yesterday's mistake or tomorrow's uncertainty. You respond instead of react. You build instead of blame. You persist instead of retreat. The world may remain unpredictable. Challenges will still arise, but a mastered mind stands steady in the midst of shifting ground. It understands that while circumstances may not always be controllable, character always is, perspective always is, effort always is. True power is waking up each day and deciding how you will think before the world decides for you. It is refusing to let negativity rent space in your mind without permission. It is choosing growth over comfort, courage over fear, responsibility over excuse. When you command your thoughts, you command your direction. When you command your direction, you shape your destiny. And in that quiet, consistent mastery of self, you discover a power no one can take from you.